What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today, and today we are going over the story of how I obtained every single one of my unicorn bottles of whiskey. Now, listen, we beg for transparency when it comes from distilleries, right? We ask for age statements, we ask for the prices, we ask for the mash bill, and we ask for everything in between. But when it comes to the influencer side of things and how we obtain these bottles, I feel like we always get the same generic answer, so I'm going to go through each one of these bottles and tell you how I obtained them. So I am going to bundle a couple of these stories together because a couple of them are very similar and a couple of them were received in the same manner. So we're going to start with this particular bottle right here, which is the old Rip Van Winkle, the 10-year. Now I got to tell you, this story is a little bit different than how most people obtain bottles like this, but let me tell you how I got this bottle. So a long time ago here in Pennsylvania, they used to release these unicorn bottles on the shelf. They would have a limited release lottery and then the rest would go to the stores, including Stag Jr. Batch 14 dropped on the shelves. I happened to walk in the right place, the right time. This is before I had a big community, people telling me about these drops. This was before PA Bourbon Squad was a part of my life. I didn't know anything about anything when it came to these particular releases, but I walked in on the right day and I saw Stag Jr. Batch 14 sitting on the shelf. Now, at the time, I had just been getting into whiskey, and I knew enough about it that I knew I needed to pick up one of these bottles, and I went up to the counter and I said, hey, do you have a bottle limit on this? They said, yeah, 2-bottle limit. So I grabbed 2 and I walked out. And I know what you're thinking, Chris, that's not Stag 14. What does that have anything to do with this old Rip Van Winkle? Well, I had a buddy that at the time, he's not real big into whiskey like I am, but he also wanted to hunt some of these more unicornish bottles, and he wanted himself a Stag Jr. as well. I had one. He wanted one. I said, yo, brother, listen, I'm going to give you the Stag Jr. He says, what do I owe you? I said, don't worry about it. I got one myself. Pay it forward. Well, he did just that. A few years later, he went on, he won the limited release lottery and got this old Rip Van Winkle, and he gave it to me, and he said, all you got to do is open it with me, try it with me, and the rest is yours. The reason I'm telling you this particular story and the reason I'm going to tell you all of these stories today is because I feel like there's this idea or this notion that people are in like back alleys taking these right off the trucks and they're never hitting the shelves. And while that might be true for some people, it's just not the case for most. I got to tell you, a lot of it has to do with community, knowing the right people, and being in the right place at the right time. Let's get into our next bottle now. Bottle number 2 that we're going to talk about is going to be a Weller Foolproof. Now, this bottle right here might be one of my favorite Wellers. I lean Antique 107 just because it's a little bit easier to get, but Weller Foolproof, I would love to have had a little bit more to put it up against my Weller Single Barrel, and we're going to talk about that bottle today as well. But how I got this is just another great story about knowing the right people. So this bottle I got when I first got into whiskey. It was what I would consider my first unicorn that I ever got, and I never even got it. I had a buddy that went over, found it in New Jersey, ended up buying 2 of them, coming back over, knew I was getting real big into whiskey at the time, gave me a phone call and said, yo, if you can come down to Philly, I got a surprise for you. You're going to want this bottle. So that's what I did. I was actually going down the shore that weekend anyway, so I called him. I said, hey, I'm coming down this weekend. Do you still have that bottle for me? He said, I got it for you. You're really going to love it. And I got to be honest with you, when he broke this bottle out, I was so new to bourbon at the time, I didn't even really know what I had my hands on. I was like, yo, this is awesome. He's like, dude, this is a unicorn bottle. Not a lot of people can find these, especially at the price that I got it for. I said, what do I owe you? He said nothing. This was just another friend of mine who knew I was getting into the whiskey community, who knew I was real big into bourbon at the time. I had just started my channel, and he said, you're going to want to make sure you have this bottle in your collection. And I gotta tell you, thank you to Hoover for this particular bottle. I would never have it without him. This bottle is definitely my first unicorn that I ever had in my collection. So this is just 2 stories so far about knowing the right people and having the right friends. It's building that community. It's putting your name out there that you are looking for these bottles of whiskey, because there are generous people. It's the most generous community that I've ever been a part of, because people will want you to try the bottles of whiskey that they love. And if they have an opportunity to get them for you, most of them will get them for you if they can. And that particular story is going to lead us right into bottle number 3 here. This particular bottle is from Wild Turkey, obviously. This is the Wild Turkey 12-year. This was an overseas bottle for a very long time. And this is just knowing, again, the right people and being in the right place. This was after I built my community. I had over 300 members in my Discord. I have over 40 patrons. And I got to tell you, I think I have one of the best patron communities. If you don't believe me, put up $3. Come hang out with us for a month. Talk with us in our Discord. That link in the description below. If you don't like it, you cancel. You spent $3. No skin off your back. This right here came from SSBG Scott. He knew somebody who was bringing them over. He brought a bunch over. SSBG Scott got it for a great price, and he gave it to me for a great price. So I'm not going to say no if I can find great bottles at great prices, but I cannot do it without the people in my community and the people that are looking out for each other. It's not just me. It's just not the YouTuber that they're doing this for. They're doing it for each other within this Discord. They're doing it for each other within this Patreon, because we all help each other out, and that's the way that you really obtain these bottles. Now, I've had multiple people reach out to me over the years, and they'll DM me. They'll see that I have these bottles, and they say, listen, Chris, how do you get these bottles? And I tell them exactly how I got them. I tell them all the stories that I'm telling you right now. But the problem is they're not really putting in the work, right? You can't just DM somebody who has a bottle and be like, yo, I really want that bottle. Can you send me one? That's not really how it works. We build a community. We look out for each other. So yeah, if you want to come join the community, put the work in, help other people obtain some bottles that maybe they couldn't get, that's how you're really going to see that return in investment. It doesn't have to always do with, I need the best bottle right now. It has to do with building the relationships and really putting the work in to prove that you're doing just as much for everybody as they're going to do for you. Because again, I wouldn't have this bottle if it wasn't for Scott. I wouldn't have this bottle if it wasn't for Hoover, and I wouldn't have this bottle if it wasn't for Pat. But the only reason they really did that is because I did so much for them that they were willing to reciprocate that and do it back for me. So our next 3 bottles are going to be a bundle here. So we'll count this as bottle 1, 2, 3. This will be bottle 4. And if anybody knows from Pennsylvania, they used to have an online liquor release. Pennsylvania is changing by the day. They used to do everything in store except for the limited release lottery, which would have the BTAC lineup. Then they moved to an online whiskey release. That's how I obtained these right here. We have Jack Daniel's Coy Hill, Weller Single Barrel, and Old Fitzgerald. This is the 10-year. I also have an 8-year, which is already finished, which I won the same way, but I'm not going to put both bottles up here. Let's talk about Pennsylvania's releases. So as I mentioned back in the day when I picked up batch 14, right, things used to get released into the stores. It was premium stores in premium locations. They would still do the BTAC lottery, which you would put in for. If they picked your number, then you would have an opportunity to buy it. But then people got pissed off because they were like, listen, I work a 9 to 5. I can't get to a store and wait in line at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. There's got to be a better way. So they moved everything to an online whiskey release. Now listen, if you tried to get a Russell's Reserve 15 recently, you understand how bad a website release can be, and Fine Wine and Good Spirits is not the best at it. There's too many people, there's too many bots scraping the website, clicking that F5, refresh, crashing the website. You would get 505 errors you wouldn't be able to check out. It became a very big hassle, I assume, for the state as well as the people. So these 3 bottles happen to be, I got lucky. But the reason I knew about these 3 bottles, it wasn't because of bots. I don't have a $250 bot buying these bottles up for me. It was just, again, the community that I built, the Patreons that I have. Most of them are from Pennsylvania. So when these releases happen, they say, yo, they put a tag up in the Discord, time to go, we gotta go buy your bottles. If you got lucky, if you got through, you could get your Jack Daniel's Coy Hill. You could get your Weller Single Barrel. You could get your Old Fitz 10 or your 8-year. I just happen to get lucky with these 3. Now, I don't always hit on these online liquor releases. Again, I have a very good community that alerts me at the very right time, but sometimes I'm not near my phone. Sometimes I'm not near a computer to be able to go on and buy these. So you do miss out. But at the end of the day, here in Pennsylvania, they stopped the online liquor release, and it looks like they're rolling things back out to stores. So are they going to keep the online liquor release? Are they going to go back to stores? Are they going to do a combination of both? I'm not quite sure. I've been reaching out to Fine Wine and Good Spirits. They don't really answer me. I have a media guy that tells me to stop emailing him all the time. I'm not going to stop emailing him because I want answers for you guys here in Pennsylvania just as much as I want answers for myself. So that's how I got these 3 particular bottles right here. Up next is going to be a Blanton's Gold. Now, my dad and my brother-in-law went across the pond and they hit up Europe. And while they were in Europe, of course, they came across Blanton's Gold at a very good price. He called me up. He said, you want one? $129.99 plus whatever that conversion rate is. I said, absolutely, pick me up one of these bottles. Short, sweet. Again, he just happened to know my dad just happened to know I was looking for one of these. My brother-in-law, thank God he was with him because he knows what he's looking for out there because he collects as well. So they ended up coming back with a couple of these for myself, for themselves, for a couple of buddies as well. So without those people in my life, knowing that I'm looking for these particular bottles of whiskey, I'd never have this bottle right here. We'll keep it short and sweet with Blanton's Gold. Now, our second to last bottle is going to be Elmer T Lee. This is the single barrel. I believe this is a unicorn. You guys can let me know in the comment section below, but this is my first true bourbon hunting story, and let me tell you how I got it. So back in the day, bourbon hunting used to mean exactly that. You would drive around to 15 or 20 stores. I went to Jersey. I went to Delaware. I would stay out of Pennsylvania because, again, you would know when those releases were coming out based off your community telling you. But back in the day, you would drive around Jersey, hit up 15, 20 stores, see what they had on the shelves. I would drive around Delaware. I believe I was actually driving through Maryland to go down the shore in Maryland one day, and I came across this in a liquor store, and it was $500. And I didn't buy that one, right? But I did drive to the next liquor store, and I saw one there, and it was $400. And I was like, all right, Elmer T Lee is around here, right? right? They obviously just got their shipment down here in Maryland of Elmer T Lee. Let me hit up a couple of other stores. Went 3-4 more stores, no Elmer T Lee. Went into the last store that I was going to stop to on my way to the beach, and guess what was sitting there on the shelf for $79.99? Again, still over MSRP, but $80 for this particular bottle is fantastic, especially at the time, the way the secondary market was looking on this. So the moral of this story right here is more about patience than knowing the right people. First things first is you have to know when bottles you're looking for are supposed to drop. If you're looking for a bottle that dropped in September and it's June, you're probably not going to find that bottle. Everything from last year is gone. It's on the secondary market, and you've got to wait until the next release comes out. If you're looking for a specific bottle that just dropped, maybe hit up a couple of stores. If you see it in one, say, hey, can you hold this for me real quick? I got to go make a phone call, and go check another couple of stores around, because if it's in one store in that area, I bet you it's in another couple other stores in that area, which means they might have a better price on it. I'm glad I sat on it for $500. I'm glad I sat on it for $400 and found it for $80, because that last guy was not price gouging. He still got his money. I still got value, and everybody was happy at the end of the day. So last but not least, we're going to talk about how I obtained my Stag store pick. This comes in at 136.4 proof, and it's easily my favorite Stag that I've ever had. I've had 14, I've had 17, I've had 18, I've had 22A, and now I have this Stag store pick, and I've had samples of some other ones in between. I believe I had a sample of 12, which I still have to get to, but this bottle right here is a crazy story on how I got it. So I'm not the biggest fan of the secondary market. I don't like to overpay for bottles that I haven't even tried yet, but there are a few bottles that I got samples of. I enjoyed the samples, and I've decided to set a limit, and it doesn't usually quite hit that secondary market, which is on the way down right now, which is always good to see, but sometimes I will pay a little bit more than MSRP as long as I know that I like the bottle. So 2 or 3 years ago, I believe it was, the Wild Turkey's Master Keep Voyage came out, and I ended up winning one on the online liquor release. My brother-in-law ended up getting one as well, so instead of drinking both the bottles, we decided to open one, split it, and see if we like it before we decide what to do with our second bottle. I didn't really like the bottle, he didn't really love the bottle, so we decided instead of keeping the bottle, let's put it on the secondary market and see what kind of value we can get for it, or maybe trade for something. And we saw the way it was going. The secondary market was on the way down. Voyage wasn't doing that well in the secondary market already. It was a $275 bottle that we invested in. So what were we going to do? Somebody came across, they said, hey, I have this particular Stag store pick. I think it's a good 1-to-1 trade. Again, these probably go for 65, 70, maybe they're a little bit more, $80 now for a store pick versus $275. But this is a bottle that I don't like versus a bottle that I know I'm going to love. So I did the trade 1 for 1. Happy for him, happy for me. Everybody won. I split the bottle halfway with my brother-in-law, and that's how I only have this much left, because I also share it with patrons as well. So the reason I made this video isn't to show off my collection or tell you I have a better whiskey collection than you, but it's more to tell you the story about how I obtained them, so you can understand from my perspective how easy or how hard it can be to get these particular bottles. You can have good friends, you can get lucky online, or you can be right place, right time, or strategically plan out how you're going to get a specific bottle of whiskey. But hey, what I want from you guys is to tell me how you obtain your favorite bottle in your collection. How did you get your first unicorn? How did you get your last unicorn? Let me know in the comment section below, because it's always interesting how people obtain these particular bottles of whiskey. But hey, as I mentioned, this isn't just about me, this is about the community at large, so I'm going to nominate 5 other channels to put out a video like this so you guys can see how we all get our bottles of whiskey. Hello again, whiskey friends, Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews, Bourbon Besties, 21090, and Gentlemen of Whiskey. I nominate you all to put out a video just like this, and anybody else with a whiskey YouTube channel, I hope you put out a video as well. But hey, make sure you go subscribe to all 5 of those channels, and make sure you turn on notifications so you can find out when they drop their video just like this. Cheers, y'all. But hey, that's where I'm going to leave you for today. If you like this content, click that like and subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Check us out on Patreon and Discord. Both those links in the description below. Again, those communities is how I obtain most of these bottles. But don't just walk in and ask for things. Build yourself up, introduce yourself, chat for a little bit before you start making requests like that. Check us out on Instagram at Bourbon of the Week. Go click that follow button over there. Please don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly. Stay healthy, stay happy, and stay hunting bottles of whiskey, whether in real life or online. Cheers, y'all.